All right, there we go. Okay. Hi, folks. This is I'd like to introduce he's in the small box right now, but it'll be in the big box in a minute, Andrew Warner, who is one of the Andrew, thanks so much for being with us over Zoom today.
Thank you, Jennifer. I really appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to meet with you all. Of course, we had planned to have this, I think 2 years ago, right? Before the pandemic started, we had planned I was going to come out in March of 2020, and that got scuttled along with many other plans for the last 2 years, but glad that now we can connect over Zoom. As Jennifer mentioned, my name is Andrew Warner. I was a pastor for many years in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and now serve as the Generosity Outreach Officer of the national setting of the United Church of Christ, and also as Development Director of the Wisconsin Conference. So 2 part-time roles, but both centered around philanthropy. I'm joining you today from my home in northern Wisconsin. I live here on the historic lands of the Menominee people. In fact, the Menominee Reservation is my northern neighbor, and share this land with the Menominee people and treasure it as they have for beyond memory. So it's good to be with you here today, and just I'm so grateful for the life and work of your congregation. I need to follow up and get my Carbon Fast bingo card. I share that concern, and just delighted to hear of the work that you all are doing to care for refugees from the war in Ukraine. It's a wonderful act of generosity that your church has done. Today we want to look at and to think about planned giving and what that can mean in our life and what it can mean for the charities that we care about. I'm really passionate about planned giving because I really think that it speaks to the challenge of our generation of people in the church today. We have in the United Church of Christ, and I think you have in Missoula, a beautiful building that was created by a previous generation, a lovely space. And that was true of the church that I served in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a lovely church building built 100 years ago from donors who gave what they could to create a home for our spiritual community. In many of our congregations, we already have the buildings. And I think the challenge for our generation is to build the fiscal home that will be as important as the physical space for our communities moving forward. And really, when we're looking at building an endowment or making special gifts for special projects through our estate, that is what we're doing. We're building up the fiscal house that will anchor and support our community just in the way that a previous generation gave us a beautiful building to worship in. As we begin to talk about planned giving, I want to root our conversation in our spiritual values, and to do that in particular by talking about some donors who I've gotten to know, one historical and one current. So I'm going to share my screen to do that. All right. So this is a window from the church that I served in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's a picture, obviously, I think you can tell, of the shepherds there on the hillside in Bethlehem. They've heard the angels sing that Jesus is born, but you'll notice they're not in Bethlehem yet. This is capturing them at that moment where they've heard the promise, but they're not yet there with Jesus. They have hope, but it's not yet their reality that they're with Jesus. So I love this moment of hope that is in the heart of the shepherds, captured in this window. The window is given in grateful remembrance of Dr. Sarah Monroe, presented by her friend, Emily Greenleaf. Now, these two women lived together for all of their adult life. So throughout the 1800s, they lived together, shared a common home together. Today, we would know them as a lesbian couple. We would celebrate their commitment to one another. But in the time that they gave this window, it could only be said that Emily was Sarah's friend. Now, there's a poignancy in that. And one of the things it says to me is that Sarah and Emily had hope in what the church would become, even though they didn't live to see that day that they hoped for. They hoped in what would become true. And in fact, 100 years after Dr. Sarah Monroe passed away, the state of Wisconsin, because of a court case, allowed same-sex marriage. And when that happened, we had 8 couples in my congregation that were married on that weekend, gathered on church, and were blessed standing beside Sarah Monroe and Emily Greenleaf's window. It took 100 years for that vision to come true. And yet they had hope and confidence in what would happen in the future. I really treasure this window because it points to what I think is true in generosity, that when we're engaged in generosity, we're working to solve a problem. And many of those problems can't be solved alone and can't be solved in a year, and they may take generations. When we think about the challenges that we care about in the United Church of Christ, some of these are generational challenges that we've been working on for a long time. Our movement has been working against white supremacy for generations. We have been working for progressive values for generations. We long for a future that we hope for, even if we may not see it in our day. Plan giving to me is that way in which we support those hopes for what will be true in the future. We give a gift now, like Sarah and Emily did, with hopes of what will come true in the future. I think there's a real spiritual lesson in that, and it's that being like the shepherds, people of hope, looking into our future. The other story I want to share is about a man named Michael Collins, and this is a group of friends of Michael that I worked with at a church in Wisconsin around a planned giving. And Michael was one who made a planned gift to their church. And what Michael would say is he was taking a risk on the congregation, that he didn't know what would happen to the congregation after the pandemic. They're a small congregation. He didn't know what the future would hold, but he was making a planned gift because he knew who these people were, the way that they loved one another, the way that they cared for one another, frankly, the way that they had cared and loved him. And so he was taking a risk on the future of the church. I really think whether it is hope or risk or gratitude, that these are the emotions that often motivate our planned gifts. And that's the kind of spiritual values that lie behind whatever we're doing with our giving. It's about that hope for the future, that faithful risks that we take because we believe in the church and we believe in what the church can do. I won't stay in the PowerPoint the whole time, but I do want to just share a few more, a slide or two more, just to define what we're talking about when we talk about planned gifts. Really, planned gifts are any gift that requires a third-party professional for us to execute. So, I can write a check to UCC Missoula, I can give cash, I can go online and make a gift. Those are all things I can do without calling in a third-party professional. But if I want to give appreciated stock or a piece of artwork or include the church in my will, I have to reach out to a third-party professional, a lawyer, financial planner, an accountant, to have that accomplished. Planned gifts also, and so we'll talk about that variety of ways that you can give and what kind of professional you'll need to work with to do it. And then planned gifts are often a balancing of ways in which we want to help loved ones, ways we want to help a charity, and often the taxes that we want to avoid. Many people find that they can continue to give the support they want to their loved ones, but reduce the tax burden on their estate by including a gift to a charity. And of course, I'm not a tax planner and I'm not a lawyer. You'll want to seek your own legal and tax advice as you make these plans, but often it's the balancing of loved ones, charities, and taxes that is a factor in deciding both how to make a gift and what size of gift one wants to make. Now, as we look at giving, I want to think with you about a couple of different kinds of gifts. There are gifts that help now. So often in planned giving, we're thinking of gifts that will help in the future, that will be in our will or in our estate but there's actually gifts that we can give now that will be of help. So a gift that helps now are things like just an outright gift. A great way to do that is a gift of appreciated stock. So the idea is that by giving the stock to the church, you don't pay the capital gains on the asset, and therefore avoid some tax implications. And so you can give more than if you sold the stock and then wrote a check to the church. So a gift of stock is a great thing to do in a similar way. An appreciated asset, like a piece of artwork, can be given to the church. And some congregations and charities are receiving donations of Bitcoin. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, of course, radically change in value, but some have experienced a real appreciation in the value of that asset, and it can be gifted to a charity. Another gift that helps now is a gift from an IRA. So in that case, you call up your IRA fund administrator and have a gift made directly from your IRA to the congregation. This is particularly important for those who are needing to make a required minimum distribution from their IRA. So typically it's 70.5. So saying, a gift from an IRA can be a great way to make a gift. If you're facing a required minimum distribution, you can give a gift out of the IRA to support your church. Some that people don't often think about are the ability to do a bargain sale. So a bargain sale is where you have an asset that you're going to sell, say a second home, or in Wisconsin, this happens, I'll use an example from Wisconsin. There was a church, a New Hope Church in Jackson, Wisconsin, that was going to build a new church facility. And they had enough money to buy 10 acres of farmland to build their church in a kind of rural community. And as they were talking about this, there was a farmer in the congregation that said, well, I have a 30-acre lot, and I can sell it to you for the price of 10 acres. That's a bargain sale. The church isn't paying what the land is worth, so that they're getting a bargain on it. And then the farmer, the donor, was able to realize some income from the sale, but still receive make a sizable donation. It's really a win-win for both the charity and the donor. And some people find that this may be the case with a home or a second home, that you are willing to sell the house or to sell the vacation property. And there might be some money that you want to realize, but you don't need the full value of it, particularly in a time like now where house prices are so dramatically increased. This can be a great way to make a gift. And a bargain sale, of course, there are some questions that the congregation want to look into, that it truly is a bargain, that the church has the wherewithal and the means to sell it. But in certain circumstances, a bargain sale can be a great way to make a gift. Some additional ways that you can make a gift now that's very helpful is through donor advised funds. So through places like Fidelity Charitable and other investment firms offer donor advised funds. These allow you to make a significant gift in one tax year and then to give the money out over several years following that gift. There's an advantage on how you do your deductions for your taxes for setting up a donor advised fund, and encourage you to look into that if you're interested. And happy to be in more conversation about it if that's of interest. So those are some ways that you can give a gift now that helps. But typically when people are thinking of planned gifts, we're really thinking of gifts that help later. It's said that 85% of planned gifts come through a will or an estate plan, and that's really the primary way that many people are making planned gifts, is through their will or through their estate. Now, not every gift in an estate has to be done through a will. Another easy way to set up a gift for later is to name the church or a charity as the beneficiary upon death of an account. So say your bank account, a checking account, or an investment account, or an IRA can be signed over that upon your death, the beneficiary is the church. That's what I've done in my own estate plan. My husband and I looked at our estate, and we realized that my traditional IRA, if our kids inherited it, would have some tax implications for them. And so we decided that the traditional IRA was the right vehicle for us to give away. And so we signed that over as to a charity upon my death. Now, that's a plan that I can change. As I grow older, I may end up spending the money from my traditional IRA. And so I won't have that as an asset to give on to a charity. And so I can change that plan, and I can name a different charity if I wanted to. Those are plans that are revocable. I can change my mind about it, but it's a great way to start building in a charitable gift in your estate plan. Another way to do that is with life insurance. You can, if you have a life insurance policy, you can name the church as the beneficiary or as a partial beneficiary of your estate, of your life insurance plan. Now, to me, because most people will do plan gifts as a gift in their will, I just want to say a couple of things about how to do this. You'll want to obviously work with a lawyer to do this, but a gift in a will is as easy as 1, 2, 3. The first step is to name the charity. You'll need the EIN, the Federal Employee Identification Number of the church. This allows your executor of your will, to properly identify the recipient organization. You'll need that federal EIN number, the proper name of the congregation, and its address. So that's the first thing. You want to name the charity. The second, you want to add a restriction or not. Of course, it's preferable for the church to receive unrestricted gifts. And then the third thing you want to do is to tell the church. So first, name the church, explain any restrictions on the gift, and 3, tell the church about your gift. I really think, while legally that first step is the most important, the proper naming of the church, I really think that the third one is as equally important. It's really important that if you've included UCC Missoula in your estate plans, to let the church know about it. And here's why. So when people hear of a gift of a living person, a planned gift of a living person, they're much more likely to make a planned gift themselves. So when you tell the church and allow them to share your story with the congregation, you help inspire other people to make a planned gift too. We are a people of story, and your story can help inspire someone else. They don't need to know the details of your estate. They don't need to know the dollar value of the gift. They don't need to know how it's given. But if someone hears that you've made a gift, it's likely to inspire them to also include UCC Missoula in their estate too. So really important to let the church know about your planned gift. Now, I'm going to go back to, before I do that, the other thing I would encourage you to think about, if you're leaving a gift to the church in your will or your estate plan, you might consider if there's a way for you to make a lead gift. So a donor that I worked with here in Wisconsin was including a significant gift in her will to her congregation, likely to be about $800,000. So a very large gift. And but in advance of that, as a lead gift, she was able to give a first $100,000. And that means a couple of things to her. One, she gets to see her church manage and use the gift that she's giving. So she gets to start to see it used in her lifetime, even though the bulk of her estate she's not able to give until she passes away. It gives the church a chance to, particularly in a sizable gift like that, gives the church an opportunity to figure out how to manage the money and how to use it well. Now, this is something you can do with a gift that even if it's not of nearly $1 million. There was a couple I worked with in my church in Milwaukee, where when the husband died, the wife created a memorial fund in his honor with the intention that the gifts would be used from that to support the work of the church on racial justice. And then when she died, her estate made a further gift that really rounded out that fund to provide annual support to the congregation in a more sizable way. So there was a lead gift, and then it was completed when the surviving spouse passed away. So those are some opportunities that you can give gifts later. Now I want to talk about a third category of gifts, and I'll share my screen again for that. So there's gifts that pay income. Hold on. So gifts that pay income. Now this is a category of gifts that people sometimes don't think about, but is a really great way to make it, can be a really great way to make a gift. There are two basic forms of this. There's a charitable gift annuity and a charitable remainder trust. And I'll talk more about each of these, but first to give you a situation to think about. There was a donor I worked with, again, here in Wisconsin. That's primarily where I do my work with individual donors. There's a donor named John who had a family farm that he had inherited, and for many years he had rented it to his cousin to farm. And eventually the cousin was ready to buy the family farm. And so the cousin bought the farm and John had an infusion of cash, but he had lost the income that he had received from renting out the farm. And so he set up a charitable gift annuity that would provide a fixed income for him for the remainder of his life. Now, here's an illustration of kind of what that looks like. So John made a gift. In this case, it was to United Church Funds, which manages charitable gift annuities on behalf of the United Church of Christ, although other institutions like Fidelity Charitable also offer charitable gift annuities. So he made a gift, opened a charitable gift annuity, and like any annuity, it provided a ongoing stream of income or payments to John and to his wife. Now, in a charitable gift annuity, it's a fixed amount based upon your age, or a fixed percentage of the initial gift based upon your age. The older you are when you establish the gift annuity, the greater your payments will be. And then upon John's death, the residual amount of the annuity will go on to the charity, in this case, charities that he selected. Another way to have income with a charitable gift is the charitable remainder unitrust, or a CRUT. This is a little bit different than an annuity in that the amount of income that you receive is variable. So in this case, the donor gave $500,000. There was a tax avoidance by not having to pay the cost basis, not having to pay for what the value was, the earnings were on that money, and then established a 5% draw from that trust that was paid annually to the donors for their lifetime. Now, because it's 5% of a variable amount, as the value of the trust increased, the amount of payments increased as well, and so that the remainder that went to the charity was greater than the initial gift. Now, of course, the stock market can go down, as we've seen this last quarter, and if the stock market went down on this trust, the annual 5% draw would also decline. So charitable remainder trust can be a great vehicle, but there is some unpredictability in terms of what the annual payments will be. The annuity is a guaranteed annual payment. It stays the same, but that means it doesn't stay competitive with inflation. The charitable remainder trust does vary with the market, but then can likely keep pace with inflation. Again, both of these are ways to make a gift now that will benefit the church or another charity in the future, and provide income for you as a donor. So I'm going to turn now and invite you to have any questions that you might have about plan giving, about different vehicles that I've mentioned, about any of the motivations. I would really welcome a chance to hear what your questions might be about plan giving. Well, I'll just mention what my email is. If you have any questions that occur to you later, or if those who are watching the recording have any follow-up questions, it can be emailed at Warner, WARNERA @ucc.org, and really invite your questions and any thoughts that you might have.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
Good to be with you, and your echo. Bye.